All right, folks, it's time for our favorite podcast, Cut to the Chase. I brought on Ben Glass today to talk to lawyers out there that might need a little help, might need a little coaching, might need a little like, hey, what's my life turning out to be? What's my practice turning out to be? Why is this overwhelming me and not in a good way? And, a lot of lawyers out there just don't really know how to handle this. And Ben, how are you doing?
It's great, Greg. I'm doing great. It's as we're recording this, heading towards the end of summer. But I have a lot of different things in my life besides, the law practice, coaching, CrossFit, soccer refereeing. So it's almost always busy. But it's good busy. Like I enjoy. I get most of the stuff I get to do, Greg, I really like doing.
And you could tell, Ben also runs the Renegade Lawyer podcast, which he so kindly had me on, and that's how I got connected to Ben. Ben also has Ben Glass Law Firm, which does personal injury work in the state of Virginia. And then along the East Coast, he does long-term insurance claims under ERISA. Did I get that right?
So it's two. It's long-term disability insurance claims, and we do life insurance claims under ERISA, which simply means that most of that work is policies that someone will get through their employer, Greg. Yeah. So because it's through the employer, it falls under federal law, and it has different rules and regulations. But we discovered that niche over 20 years ago, and we're good at it, and are a major player in the East Coast in that, fortunately.
Yeah. That's nice. Not everybody knows about that area law, and it's an interesting area law.
It is, yeah.
You got to take the record as it is, and then you got to show that everything was arbitrary and capricious or something like that.
Well, the cool thing is, if the client contacts you at the right time, then you build the record, and you build the record without a lawyer on the other side. Claim reps are on the other side, and you can put anything in the record that you want. And so understanding how the claims are litigated, because you just said it exactly right. Like the federal judge gets it on a closed record. So you need to understand how they're litigated in order to build the record. And then the cool part about that, Greg, is, it's my favorite conversations with clients is I get to represent a lot of doctors, lawyers, and high wage earners, CEOs, CFOs all over the country who may have something going on that's going to prevent them from working. So if they get to me first, we can go through and sort of design out the steps to take, right? If someone has a valid claim, but they're oftentimes high wage earners and entrepreneurs, they have multiple businesses, they have multiple policies. And so a guy like me will look at your medical records, talk about your life, like what are your goals for your life? All right, now let's figure out step 1, step 2, step 3 to perfecting your claim, if that's the right thing for you. Obviously, not everybody has a valid claim, but they can save a lot of money and heartache by talking to somebody like me first, and we'll map out a process.
Yeah. All right. So on top of all the stuff that you're doing, you've also written books helping small law firms, solo practitioners learn how to market or improve their marketing in this day and age where some of the law firms are just spending millions and millions of dollars, and it's hard to compete with that. So, what I would like to do is talk about, what you want to talk about, which is, lifting the tide for all and encouraging lawyers to think deeply about what they want out of their life and design a practice that supports your vision. So let's talk about that. What do you do to help these lawyers lift their own tide, so to speak?
Sure. So my own journey was very typical. Like I got out of law school and worked for a firm for 12 or 13 years and got a lot of experience trying cases. So we did a lot of insurance defense work. I was in court with lawyers who were more experienced than me. So I learned a ton. Then it came a time, Greg, when you get the entrepreneurial seizure and you go start your own firm. At that time I was coaching 3 soccer teams and I needed to have more control over my time, I thought. So I started my own practice, didn't know anything, didn't really have a business plan. I was a good lawyer, and that's the only asset I had. And this is right around the time when the internet is becoming important in the world, right? So not a lot of lawyers had websites. I didn't know anything and found out after 6 months and sort of running low on cash, like, oh my gosh, how do we get clients in? So I learned marketing. I did a lot of self-study. I hooked up with some gurus. Dan Kennedy is one of my mentors. And what I did, Greg, is I looked outside the legal profession and said, what are these other guys and gals running businesses doing? How could we import that into legal? Learned it, and it worked for my firm, and began teaching that. In the beginning, 18 years ago, Greg was teaching it to personal injury attorneys, how to advertise better, mainly in the yellow pages, because that's what it was, yellow pages
Yeah.
and TV. Now, over time, so in now 2023, really it's morphed into an organization where we help solo and small firm lawyers build great businesses. And so it's not just PI and it's not just marketing, it's all the parts of it. And what I do is I help, if you read any of the literature in the law journals, the standard law journals, Greg, it's all about how sad and depressed and dysfunctional lawyers are. And so many lawyers are not happy with where they are in their profession. And I believe that shouldn't be the default. Like the default should be your own happiness. And there's a way to get there. And I coach hundreds of lawyers and have dealt with thousands of lawyers over 18 years to help them achieve whatever happiness is for them. And so usually it's thinking deeply about their own life. What makes them happy? What would be great for they and their family? Usually we're talking about solving for the financial and emotional security of them and their family. Okay, what kind of a practice would support that? It's going to be different for everybody. For years and years and years, I litigated medical malpractice cases. That was great while it was, but those are time consuming, they're very expensive, and your time isn't your own because you're flying around the country doing expert depositions on somebody else's schedule. So what kind of a practice would serve that? And then we teach lawyers, all right, well, who's the client? Who's the avatar client? You got to think about that for that practice. Only then, Greg, do you start to think, all right, what's the marketing that's important to drive in that perfect client for me? So I give lawyers permission to think about that first, because most lawyers, they don't even know that there's this whole ladder where you get to create your own life. And then we show them the tools once they've done this thinking, we show them the tools to get there. And then that marketing, which drives cases, clients, matters into a law firm, that creates other problems. Like, how do I hire? How do I build a great culture? How do I build systems that have to be managed? How do I manage the money flow? And so now we do all of that. And mainly my message to lawyers, Greg, is if I can do it, and I've got 9 kids and still referee soccer games and, do CrossFit. So I've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I didn't build it in a day. So let's be very clear that this is work, but we're one of the thought leaders. I'm one of the thought leaders, I think, in the world. There are many now, who can show someone who's struggling. They went to law school, so they're smart. They're in the profession, but they're not happy, right? They're working 80 hours a week. They got bad clients. Maybe they have bad team members. All right, we can help them solve for that. They have to want to do it.
Yeah.
We definitely can help them solve for that.
So what are obviously people are going to law school. I don't think people realize what they're going to get themselves into as lawyers when I want to be a lawyer, I go to law school. So there's this big gap of what you're thinking is going to be, and then what becomes. And a lot of it, I think, depends on, do you go out on your own? Do you work for the state attorney's office? Do you work for a large law firm? But what are the typical things that you see? Like, let's say there's law students just about to graduate right now, and they want to avoid this. They want to be happy. They want to process things properly. What are some of the early traps that lawyers are falling into that basically result in your avatar client?
Yeah. So take one step back. If anyone is not yet in law school, but they're thinking about going to law school, I'm a big advocate for going to law school. But I'm also a big advocate, you don't have to go to the most expensive law school around, right? It's just a ticket to your first job, right? So, but when you're in law school, so in my disability practice, Greg, I have represented, let's say 6 and 7 and 8 year associates at big law. Something happens, they may have a head injury, they may have an illness, and they can no longer work their standard 80-hour work week. Yeah. And so they come to me and we're looking at their disability policies and trying to figure out a way to get them on claim. And I will have this discussion that I'm having with you. And I'll say, ma'am or dude, like, you're making $185,000 working for, worldwide branded law firm. And I've represented these people. I said, and you're 80 hours a week, you're on call 24/7 and you're flying around the world. In one case, this fellow I helped, like, there are easier ways to make $185K. And they say, no, there isn't. And I say, why do you say that? I say, well, because I went to law school and they showed me big law. And then I went into big law and they showed me, and I've never seen anything. I've never even like a small solo and small firm lawyer. That's for other people. And I tell them, look, I have hundreds of lawyers come to our conferences who are making more than that, working 40 hours a week, getting home in time for dinner, and they're not working on the weekends. Is that interesting? And so one of the major problems, to answer your question, Greg, is no one has ever shown them this alley. So I show them this alley. Again, if you grew up being the smartest one in your class, and graduated at the top of your class in law school, you just haven't seen it. And someone has told you along the way that this alley isn't a very honorable alley or not the right alley, or you should be working big law. If you think about it, Greg, big law is really, you're working 2 jobs. With the hours that they want, you're getting paid a lot. But if you divide it up by 2, which is what it really is, it's not worth it, in my view. So that's the first thing, is just knowing that there's a different alley. And then I think the second thing, Greg, is it's this disbelief. And it's meeting guys like you and meeting guys like me and the guys and gals that we hang around with. You go, look, here's normal people. They're happy. They're often, if they're married and if they have kids, and that's a large number of our members are married and have kids, and they're getting to their baseball games and their soccer games, their lacrosse games and their recitals and all that stuff. We go, wouldn't that be cool for you? Like, are you getting to all this stuff? And so we're able to show them real people who are achieving happiness, making money, and making their family happy because they're actually seeing the lawyer. Whether the lawyer is mom or dad, they're seeing their parent lawyer at the weekends. And then we go, we say, like, all right, what interests you? Because 18 years in now, we've coached lawyers across all of the consumer facing areas. So we started PI, personal injury, because that's what I am. But today, workers' comp, social security, family law, criminal, we've got great models. So if somebody says, look, I just want to practice by myself, have no staff, and do DUI defense the rest of my life, I got guys and gals I can show you who are doing that, right? Yeah. I want to build an estate planning firm, represent high wage earners who own multiple businesses. I have guys and gals who are doing that, and I can introduce you to.
Yeah. So going back to, where does this all start? My thought is, I'm not so sure that law schools are not doing their students a service, because when I go back and I remember, hey, after the end of the first year, I wasn't such a great student. And, and they were like, the office that was designed to help you get jobs, all they would talk about is, well, the top, if your law review will talk to you, will help you get a job with a big law firm. And that was the only road. Maybe that was just my experience. Maybe that was just my law school back then, but somehow or another, I think that this is sort of like the law school, MO.
I agree with you. Look, I think law schools are designed to build, exchangeable, fungible widgets for big law, right? And big law is big supporters of law schools. I was invited a couple of years back. I was invited to come, or at least someone from my school, from George Mason, now Scalia School of Law, reached out to me. You want to be on a panel, and you want to mentor? And I go, yeah, look, here's my stuff. Read my stuff. And I never heard back from them. So you have to wonder. Did my name just slip through the crack, or do they not want people like me? And they're saying to lawyers, the big law path is not the only path out there. And look, big law might be great. And there's a lot of people that are highly successful. They love it. I'm just saying that if you're not happy with where you are, whether you're running a small firm or you're an associate or a junior partner at some big law place, there's this world out here of usins. And I have members in Great Legal Marketing who are big law escapees, right? So they've been there, done that. They're very good lawyers. They're great people. But when they broke away to start their own gigs, they came to us and learned a lot. Now, again, very smart people. But it's a different world where you have to go out and get your own clients, make your own name, build a personality brand, learn marketing, learn how to hire, learn how to use the technology. That's it. And we just, look, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I've assembled a group of lawyers and subject matter experts where, you come into our world and this is an open book. We'll show you everything that we do.
Yeah. When you talk about the 80-hour work weeks, I look at it like, all right, so if you're with a big law firm, you're basically told you have to bill out, just a ridiculous amount of hours. So you really have no choice, and I cannot see how spending 80 hours of time working for somebody else, working on clients that you don't like, or, for your partner that you don't like, or subject matter you don't like. I can't see how that can be anything but miserable. And then there's other people that work 80 hours a week because maybe they love it, or maybe they're just not efficient and they just cannot, process things, in a timely fashion, and they get hung up on this. And I mean, I've worked in so many different law, office formats where I see people complaining about how much, oh, they work eight, but then I'm like looking at down the hall and I'm like, you just spend 40 hours just bullshit, chit chatting
Yeah.
with one person. And I saw you do it earlier in the morning with somebody else. So I don't know. Are you really working 80 hours? Or are you just, hiding away in your office for 80 hours because you got something else problematic?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And again, the question we ask people is, are you happy going to work? And are you happy heading home? And if the answer is yes, yes, then it's not for you or I to judge. Like if they're working that life and they can answer both of those questions honestly, yes, yes, then great. They don't need me. They're happy. But you're right. There's so many things that lawyers can do. So one of the issues that lawyers who go and start their own gigs run into is they don't have a great filter on who they're letting in the door as a client. Sometimes that's because of a scarcity mindset, like they're trying to get cash in the door. Sometimes it's because of the legal profession mindset that I'm supposed to be out here helping everybody. We don't believe that's true at all. Like, help people that you're really good at and you can actually help them, and don't burden you and your team down with bad clients or with clients who you don't have the expertise to go and help them. And too many lawyers, Greg, if you look at a lot of websites, they have the one lawyer and two lawyer firms that have 57 different things that they're supposedly good at. Like that's, so one of the first things we do is like, can you eliminate the 80% of things that you've actually not done one of those cases? You're not qualified to do it. And it wouldn't make you happy if one of those walked in the door.
Yeah.
Let's eliminate that and make you a quasi appear to be like a specialist or appear to have expertise in one area. And that's why at our firm, like, we're really good at PI auto mainly. Like, Virginia is a full contributory negligence state, so slip and falls are hard. A lot of things that might be good in a different state are harder here. And this ERISA work, like, all right, we're good at those two things. If you need a will, call us. Our Rolodex is big, and we'll get you to the right person once we understand how big your estate is. You need a divorce? I always ask, is it like World War III, or is it we're friends? We're just not, we're tired of each other. Got two different kinds of lawyers. And I think that's what, solo and small firm lawyers who succeed are really, they're good at the work they do, and then they're great connectors. So they have big Rolodexes. And Greg, they're always asking, like, what can I do for you first? So I would find out about what your practice is, who you're looking for, and then I would be looking for cases and clients for you. Because, the better your marketing is, the more you attract all sorts of inbound leads. So there's a lot to it. Like, I don't think any of this is actually rocket science, and it's nothing that BenGlass has invented at all. What I think I've done a really good job is being able to explain and being able to inspire someone. Just go, oh, that sounds like fun. If this is true, that sounds like fun. And then saying, what I'm good at, Greg, is tell me about your practice, where you are, where you think you want to be. Okay, the next thing you should do is this, because there's a lot of good things. Like, you can spend money on web and pay-per-click and video and all that stuff. It's all good, but it might not be the right thing for you next. And that's another problem is, lawyers have, is that we're inundated, our emails are inundated with, we can get you on the front page of Google and we can do all this stuff. And when you don't really have a system for building your marketing assets, then it's just, you end up wasting money and then getting frustrated at all of your vendors.
Yeah. And answering the phone is key, and people like get into these marketing things and then all of a sudden they don't have the bandwidth to answer the phone calls properly. These days you can't wait a day, and before somebody called you up, you're like, all right, I'll call them back tomorrow. Now, if you don't call them back in 2 minutes, they're on to somebody else. So my next big topic question here is with respect to the unhappiness. I'm not going to say depression, but that lawyers suffer. How much of it is a financial issue? In other words, like, are they not making enough money, or maybe they're making a lot of money, but they're not, saving it or investing it properly, or they go out and they buy a big yacht and they piss it away, and then they're back to square one.
So most of the lawyers who come to us who express any sense of unhappiness, money is usually a part of it, but it's usually not the primary. So I spoke to a lawyer today who had actually doubled his revenue from about 325K to 600K in a year. So money is not the problem. However, in growing without paying a lot of attention to systems and without paying a lot of attention to putting the right people on the bus in the right seats, he was very frustrated because the line outside his office door was long, with his own team not being able to solve problems for themselves. So it wasn't the money, because the marketing that we teach works, but it was these other growth issues. And so I think, primarily, Greg, the things that make lawyers unhappy are the people. And it's either clients who are not well controlled because they're not well suited for the practice, or team members who are not well trained, because one of the things we don't do very well is we're not very good at leading teams. Nobody teaches that to us in law school. And for those of us who start small firms, it's relatively easy to go, you and one assistant. Okay, we can lead that person. But as you grow and you've got 4 or 5, and then next thing you've got a dozen, next thing you may have 18 people, we just haven't been trained in leadership skills. And that's a whole new skill to learn. And so most of it isn't, I don't think it is the money. I mean, the money is the part if you're not able to drive cases, but I think it's the easiest problem to solve, like how to generate leads. And as you alluded to, Greg, like when that phone is answered, that person who's answering the phone has to be enthusiastically reinforcing the decision that person made to pick up the phone and call, because we're scary. Lawyers are still scary to people. And so if Susie's picking up the phone and she's interrupted because that's not really her job and she's really busy and she's anything but an enthusiastic proponent of Greg, that's a problem, because you paid money to drive that lead in, or you courted a referral source to get that lead in. And now Susie's busy, not trained, and not real happy about how her day is going. Boom, that money you spent to drive that lead just got pissed out the door.
Yeah. So I go back to the law school and people are like, all right, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to law school, whatever. And then they get this big job with this big law firm and they're like, oh my God, all I'm doing is all these motions. I don't even go to court. And then the light bulb goes off. Oh, I'm going to open up my own office or whatever. And, they do it and they have no idea, especially today, how many skills are involved. And you probably cannot be all in one, and you got to delegate, you got to hire, you got to train and all this. And so those are all non-lawyer skills. So I think that to some degree, people are just going from one miserable situation, then they get in their office and they got all these responsibilities and trust accounts and it's overwhelming. And I think people just are not thinking things through from day one, to all of a sudden it's 10, 15 years into it and you're sort of trapped. I mean, do people feel trapped? Is that you see?
Yeah. So here's what we have. So when I left my firm, so I started practicing in 83, left my firm in 95, and there were not a lot of resources. There were a few number of books about starting your own law firm, but there was not what you just described that we need. Today, any lawyer that is starting, maybe has some years in the profession and now is starting his or her own law firm, there's plenty of choices. And so what I tell lawyers is you need to be in a room. You need to be in a room of entrepreneurs. I have a room, but there are plenty of rooms out there now with very good people, good guys and gals who are coaching lawyers about all of this, because you're right. If you don't even know what's in all of those boxes, it's kind of, my analogy is golf, which I tried golf at one point, and then I had more kids and when I wasn't able to play. But in order to be really good at golf and to have fun, you have to be good at a lot of different things. It's not just hitting the ball really far. There's a lot of skills to be able to get a lower score and get enjoyment out of the game, right? So there's a lot of skills in business that you need to be good at, or at least recognize enough to be able to know how to outsource and how to judge the outsourcing that you'll get, right? And so there's lots of rooms. And Great Legal Marketing is not the only room. My friend Richard James, R. John Robbins, Mike Mogul, Ken Hardison, and a number of others who I don't mean to, diss by leaving them out of this conversation, but they're all good at showing lawyers what they need to do. And I think the lawyers who are going to get left behind, Greg, are the lawyers who are running a small business, but they're not in some room. Because here's what we're seeing. The big firms, so if you take like the big PI firms in the country, the ones who have a ton of money, they're spending a ton of money. I mean, they're doing things. I talked to a guy last year, Greg, who spent $50,000 promoting one TikTok video. Well, that's more than some lawyers take home in a year, right? And so how are we going to compete with that? Well, we're going to compete by being grassroots marketing driven, by being personality driven, by having Susie answer the phone the right way. That's how we compete. But if you're not in an entrepreneurial room and you don't hear like the discussion you and I are having, you don't hear the discussions going in these rooms, I think you're going to be left behind, because it's very hard to be happy. And your only asset is, I'm a really good lawyer, because the public isn't a good judge of who a really good lawyer is until they actually use you and you get a result. So just seeing your advertising, your marketing, it's hard. I mean, they can look at reviews and all that stuff, but it's hard for them to tell.
Yeah. And I guess the last part of the puzzle that I want to cover here in connection with what you can do for these lawyers is how many people are coming to you? Not, I'm not asking you exactly, but do you have a lot of people that are basically coming to you? They've got psychological issues, that's really the source of their unhappiness. It's not even so much the work, or it's too much work, or, they don't know how to delegate. They don't know how to deal with their employees or their coworkers or whatever, but they just have got some serious issues. What do you do with that?
Yeah. So that's hard, but let's not use the phrase psychological issues, and let's just talk about mindset issues. So what are lawyers good at? They're good at seeing issues and making objections and seeing the 4,000 ways that something won't work. That's what got us good test taking skills and got us into law school, got us through law school. The entrepreneurial mindset sees the world as full of abundance, right? I just mentioned a handful of my quote unquote competitors. The truth is, those people at the top are collaborating, not competing. And so, sure, if someone has a bona fide psychological diagnosis and a problem, that's challenging for sure. But so much of the time if I was to talk to someone like that, Greg, I probably can shift their mindset, not just by convincing them, but by showing them models of other lawyers who have built a practice like they want to build. And then I'm a connector. So I talked to a lawyer today who's an estate planning lawyer, and I gave him 3 names of people in our highest level mastermind group who would probably talk to him, who are running estate planning practices. I said, go look at this person, call them and tell them you're a member. They'll probably talk to you. And just because I know what my members are going to tell them is that it starts with what goes on up here, and realizing that the world is big, it is abundant, we share, there's plenty of people who have this view of the world. You got to maybe stop reading the newspaper and watching the general press, because that's all negative, because that's how they sell things, how they sell clicks, right? And so that's the way I would approach it. And what the discussions I love to have, Greg, are with lawyers who are struggling. And I do this thing, I probably should, called Lunch with Ben. So they can go to lunchwithben.com. They could schedule an hour with me. And here's what it costs. I just had one today. They get the salad delivered to my office. I'm going to sit here and talk to them anyway. And let's talk through this. Even if you're not ready to join Great Legal Marketing, or or one of these other great organizations, I can help you in an hour. And again, what am I doing? I'm helping you figure out what's the next thing I should spend $1 on, Greg, or what's the next thing I should spend an hour on. I definitely can help lawyers like figure that out. And so that they're not spinning their wheels, buying something that they can't afford and won't actually be good. Because why drive more leads if you've got Sally and Sally's too busy to enthusiastically answer the phone, right? That's what really my superpower is. And of course, we have a lot of material at Great Legal Marketing, but my superpower, and I love talking to lawyers, especially young lawyers. Like like you're just out and maybe you're working in some place and you're not entirely happy, but you're not really sure what to do about that. We have a recent hire of an attorney who was jumping from one, insurance defense small firm to another insurance defense small firm. And that wasn't a leap up in the world. And she would tell you that it was kind of miserable. Now
Yeah.
she's over here and she's really, really happy.
Nice, nice. All right. So, I mean, what I like, listening to what your approach is, it's, not just necessarily diagnosing what the problem is, but
Yeah.
you're providing practical information. So, all right. So somebody out there listening to the show, they were just listening for whatever, just to kill a half an hour time driving from point A to point B. And they're like, you know what? I actually could use a little bit of a tune up. All right. Aside from your lunch with
Yeah.
Ben, like what else, like what would people do? They go, do you have, it sounds like you have conferences.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I
as
get Michael Mogul email every day.
I'll be actually, as we're recording this, I'm visiting with Michael down in Atlanta a couple days. Yes, but our conference is in October. It's in Orlando. People can go to glmsummit.com and just for a free download the summit report. You don't have to give an email or anything. Just there's a big red button, GLM Summit Report. If they want to find out more about the organization, they can go to greatlegalmarketing.com. If they want to see what the law firm is doing now, we're getting ready to launch a new website, but they can go to BenGlassLaw.com. And if they Google Ben Glass attorney or Ben Glass soccer referee, like they'll find out. And here's what I tell people, Greg, is like, listen to some of the episodes of the Renegade Lawyer podcast. And if you like the philosophy, and if you like what you and I have talked about here, then you're probably going to like what's inside the tent. If this doesn't align with your view of the world, then it doesn't matter how many, marketing tactics or strategies we teach you. If you don't believe the world is full of abundance and good people and the legal profession is a great profession to be in, none of the other stuff is really going to help. I mean, That's the truth. So I'm looking for lawyers who either believe or want to believe and want to be shown examples of lawyers who are truly happy, making an impact with their families, with their clients, and with their communities. I mean, it's not rocket science, but I think you need to be in a room with folks who think like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think some people just get so wrapped up in their, the minutia of their life that they need to talk to somebody,
Yeah.
even if, I'm a big believer, of just talking things out. I say to my girlfriend, just listen to me. You don't even have to respond. Let me just hear myself. But, all right, let's say that I'm somebody out there. I'm thinking, well, maybe I do need to talk to Ben. How can they send you an email? Can they send you a call before they jump all in and do that kind of stuff? And what's the best way to get in contact with you?
So you can set up, again, one of these consults that cost you a salad at lunchwithben.com. Yeah. You could also send me an email if you listen to this podcast at ben@benglasslaw.com. I will try to help you. I will say that the most efficient thing is let's sit down for an hour. It's not a sales call. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm absolutely going to help you. And you and I are going to share lunch because you're going to get the sandwich or the salad delivered. I've been doing this. I've been practicing law for 40 years this October, Greg. I love the profession. I love the work that I get to do. If you follow me around for a week and try to figure out what's work and what's play, I think it would be challenging to figure out what's work and what's play. So much of my life blends from one realm to the other. And it's not just me, it's the people that we've assembled in the tribe who are so important.
Yeah. Listen, you are a joy and an inspiration. I love talking to people like you, positive, moving forward, handling your affairs properly, helping out other people. This is Ben Glass. He's an exceptional lawyer. He's got a great podcast. I mean, the guy's writing books and he's coaching. He's helping people be happier and better people than they are. And on top of that, he has 9 children.
That's a story for another day. Yeah. So we have 4 adopted from China. The youngest just turned 21. We got 7 grandkids. So our life is full.
Wow. That's crazy.
And I'm married to Sandy for 42 years. So that's the real secret to all of this, I think.
Nice. All right. Well, that'll do it for this.
Yes,
did we cover everything you wanted to cover?
No, it's great. It's always good to talk to you. You are an inspiration. And look, we just need to get the message out that there's happy lawyers out there. And here's one place people can go if they're not totally satisfied with their life and their practice.
Okay. Agree or disagree? A happy lawyer is a better lawyer.
100%. Yeah. 100%. Because now you have space and time to think, what do clients want? They want our creative genius, right? It's not how we answer interrogatories, it's how we kind of solve the big picture of their case and of their life. Some minutes of my discussions with clients, Greg, are about their lives. I'm kind of like a life coach. We do the legal really well, but there's always something after the legal. Like my clients are injured and disabled. They're going to have, but they're live. So,
Yeah.
so how do we live? How do we live?
All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Cut to the Chase. I'm going to put all of
Thanks, man.
Ben's info in the show notes. If anybody has any questions, wants to reach out to Ben, you can call me up or email me. I'll get you in touch. And Ben's already provided the best ways to get in touch with him. Don't hesitate, is what I say. If you're not sure, maybe he can help me. Maybe reach out to him, have lunch with him. I bet you it's the healthiest 1 hour lunch that you're going to have for the month. All right. All right, everybody, you know what to do. Subscribe, rate, and review, and that'll do it for this episode of Cut to the Chase. Ben Glass, thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.